Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth, or King of the Road, and I will be going on the road beginning Tuesday night to Cooperstown, New York. But we have some business to take care of tonight here with my dream team of people. And I'm going to lead off since I'm in a baseball frame of mind. I know JB likes the NFL, so do I. But we got plenty of time for them in the fall. We're dealing with the sport boys this summer, and I'm in a baseball mindset between what I do with the Marlins and what lies ahead in Cooperstown. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get introductions out of the way earlier. We have a great show on hand. And just to give you folks an idea what kind of a show we do have in store, what athlete in the past 30 years would you want to meet? The crew is going to have their opportunity to mention one, okay, Rick Curdy, and I repeat, one, okay. This isn't going to be you trying to go ahead and find another one because I know you're good at it, and I give you a lot of credit for doing it, but just numero uno one, and that's probably all the Spanish that I do know. With that said, okay, Mr. Curdy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
My name is Rick Curdy, founder and CEO of the Charlotte Bats. You can find me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. We have a petition on there to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. So please sign it. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB and Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy.
JB Ellis, go next.
JB Ellis, Sideline Sports, every Tuesday, 8:30. Live and then DBTV everywhere else anytime. Right now, this is for you, James Tatum. I'm right here. Where you at, Mr. Suspended?
All right, and my longtime co-host on this very program, George Eichhorn.
Yeah, Scott, good to be on with you again tonight. And guys, reach me at SNG Sports 99. Also, George Eichhorn at LinkedIn and Facebook. And also order a copy of my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air by Arcadia Press. There's a link to it on the South Florida Tribune website. So you want to make sure you get a copy of that book. It captures the history of Detroit sports broadcasting, including a page featuring Scott Morganroth and featuring him with Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali. You talk about two great athletes, Scott. You were there interviewing them.
Yeah, here in my beloved hometown of South Florida. All right. And so everybody got their intros out of the way. You guys ready to roll? JB got his in. George got his. All right. Well, here's the main topic of the night. Okay, I've been waiting for your answers, and we're going to get them now. What athlete in the past 30 years would you like to meet? All right, Rick. One.
Okay. I wanted to meet Lou Gehrig. Okay. I said to me, my dad would always tell me that Lou Gehrig was a better baseball player than Babe Ruth, and I mean, all the games he played in a row, classy guy. He seems like it was a really, really nice man. So when he could sit down and talk, complete opposite of Ruth, where Ruth was the party boy, big center of attention. Gehrig was always like the kind of shy, private guy. It was just him and his wife. Just very humble, put up phenomenal numbers, during his career. Won a Triple Crown. Of course, played for the Yankees. I just love to sit down and talk with him. And it's unfortunately that he died so young because I think his numbers would have been even bigger. And so that's the person I would love to meet. Would be the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig.
Now, Rick, I will say one thing. You are really unbelievable. I said in the last 30 years, but considering the fact that you brought up Lou Gehrig, I will give you a mulligan for that. You don't get another one, but you get to mention Lou Gehrig because I'll tell you what, who in their right mind would not want to meet this guy because of that consecutive game streak that was broken by Cal Ripken Jr. And I thought that was an unbreakable record, but Lou Gehrig did break it. All right, George Eichhorn, I defer to you.
Well, my guy is somebody I have never met, and unfortunately, I've never interviewed him either. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods has been such a asset to the African American community, to the sport of golf. And I got to tell you, it's funny because I met his father. His father was in town at the Detroit Athletic Club with former President George H.W. Bush, and they were announcing that first tee program, that they have for young golfers. And Detroit was one of the early sites that former President Bush and like I said, Tiger Woods' dad was at the press conference. Tiger was not there because he was already on the circuit, at a golf tournament that same day. but he means so much. I would love to talk to him and see what everything. And I'm not talking about the bad stuff. We all know that he's had some unfortunate things happen in his life with the divorce and with the car accident and things like that. But I mean, just to talk to him and to learn more about what a great influence he's been, and a positive influence on so many young people taking up the sport of golf, and obviously for, like I said, for blacks in America as well. So my guy's Tiger Woods.
I like that. And you know what I like about Tiger Woods? I think his birthday is either the day after mine or 2 days after. He's a Capricorn. He's not a bad
Wow. Good.
Yeah, I think, I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's the 30th or 31st. My crack statistician, Candy Ebling, will probably have that by the end of the night. But meanwhile, JB Ellis, who do you want to meet or would you like to meet?
So this is a tough question. I'm sitting
Well, do you
here
think I'm supposed to make him easy? Come on, JB, really?
I'm glad I got to go last because
Okay, good.
I'm still debating. I'm trying to draw as much time as I can on this one.
Yeah, all right. So you're our version of Brett Favre. You're waffling, right?
I'm going to go with Barry Bonds because, the Incredible Bulk was amazing. The best baseball player of our time by far. He was great when he was young in Pittsburgh, a skinny kid that, did everything. And then later in his career, when his body transformed, still the best player in baseball as an old man. Hit home runs. They walked him with the bases loaded intentionally. Who does that? He can play the field. So he was by far the greatest player I've ever seen. And he was, the media and him just didn't get along. And I'm convinced that he's not as bad as the media portrays him to be. He's probably not the most personable guy, but I can tell you I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've gotten along with everyone I've ever interviewed, so I'd probably get along with him, and I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with him. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and just to hear stories. I mean, Willie Mays is his godfather. His dad was a great player. Could you imagine the stories and the fun you can have sitting there having a great conversation with him?
I had the opportunity to do it and turned it down and decided to go to the Marlins locker room when the Marlins beat the Giants and Pudge Rodriguez had that play at the plate and vaulted us into subsequently the World Series. I turned it down. Wanted nothing to do with Barry Bonds, although that is a good segue. We'll do that later in the show. So I'm glad that you have the guts to meet him. I have no interest in the guy, but that's okay. That's what the show's about. We all have different opinions. The guy I would like to meet is Bo Jackson, who recently paid for the funeral expenses for all the 19 victims in the Uvalde shooting. Everybody knows about Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. Once again, rest in peace. Prayers for all those folks that are going through the tragedies. But Bo Jackson spurned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and turned out to be an unbelievable athlete with not only the Raiders, but the Kansas City Royals and subsequently the Chicago White Sox. So to me, Bo Jackson, great heart, and what he's done as a person, as an athlete, to me, is a guy that maybe, God willing, I have an opportunity, but I'm a Bo Jackson guy all the way. Great athlete. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that Bo Jackson's probably one of the greatest athletes ever. And I mean athletes because of his ability to be a multi-sport star, both on the football field as well as baseball. And if it wasn't for that devastating hip injury, he'd still be playing. But I think the one thing I like about Bo Jackson is he flattened Brian Bosworth. Okay, the biggest bust on the planet when Brian Bosworth, had that weird looking hair and was starting to talk trash. And you don't do that. Bo don't let you go ahead and talk trash. Otherwise, Bo make you look bad. And Brian Bosworth, to me, is a trivia story I can't say he's a bust because he came in the supplemental draft. I don't call anybody that's in the NFL supplemental draft bust because it's a secondary draft. It isn't first. So Bo Jackson gets my vote. And yes, Candy Ebling did produce the Tiger Woods birthday, December 30th, 1975. So at least you can say that I am definitely 13 years older than Tiger Woods. So, Candy does a great job. In fact, I'll give her prompts right now. I do want to go out there and give Candy her prompts for doing a great job on the South Florida Tribune as well. But meanwhile, while we go ahead and talk about some intros before we go into the next subject, love all your answers. I think they're really good and very well thought out. So, folks, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, or follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, folks, whether you're in the subway, whether you're out in the Metro Rail, wherever, go out there in your vehicle. You can listen to the audio portion, or you get to go ahead and watch us in action. And I am definitely king of the road, and I've driven over 3 million miles in my lifetime. That doesn't count how many airplanes I've been on, which I don't really care to get into, nevertheless. So, meanwhile, great answer. So, for all you folks that are just joining us, Rick chose Lou Gehrig, George Tiger Woods, and Barry Bonds. Okay, well, you know what? That's pretty good. All right, so on to the next subject tonight. I really like those answers. I think they're fantastic. We're going to a guy who doesn't compare anything to those individuals, but a guy by the name of Josh Rosen recently signed with the Cleveland Browns. It's his 5th team in 5 years. So say what you want about this guy. I still think that Josh Rosen has gotten the wrong end because he's traveled so many teams. And I don't think he's really had a great opportunity to earn the starting job. But I guess Cleveland sees enough with him, knowing that you have the potential suspension of Deshaun Watson, which we're really waiting on days, and they're trying to fortify their quarterback depth. So, you know what, Rick? I know you have a lot of quarterbacks in Charlotte. We're not going to get into Baker, Mayfield, or Sam Darnold, but since you're a California kid, UCLA, you think Josh Rosen finally sticks with Cleveland?
I don't think so. I think that's just another stuff for him. You know, they got him for insurance because they don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. I think the Browns are prepared that he's going to be suspended for a year. So I just think he's just there to kind of fill in that gap of quarterbacks, knowing that Deshaun Watson will likely be suspended maybe for a year. I think that's what the Browns are preparing for. And I agree with you, Scott. I think he's gotten the raw end. I mean, he was selected 10th by the Arizona Cardinals and played one season, and they dumped him for Kyla Murray. So, and he's just been bouncing around everywhere. I thought he was a really good quarterback. I liked him in the draft. It was a draft with quarterbacks I was not in love with. I liked him a lot. And I just think he's just not given that opportunity, and he's just been bouncing everywhere and bouncing everywhere. To me, it's unfair to call him a bust because I don't call him a bust because he's just never had that opportunity. You know, when you get drafted one season and they trade you right away for nothing when he went to the Dolphins, it's unfair, and I just feel bad for him. And if he can't be in the NFL or anything like that, I always thought he would be a superstar like in the USFL or the XFL. So we'll see what happens, but I just think this is just another pit stop for Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, I think the only thing that he does have going for him is Kevin Stefanski's a really good offensive mind. If there's anybody that can hopefully bring the best out of Josh Rosen, knowing that he's really not under a lot of pressure being low on the depth chart, then hopefully he has an opportunity to develop. I was hoping that he'd develop with the Bucs. They moved on from him quickly. I believe he went to the 49ers for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And, of course, we know that what happened with Atlanta was a cup of coffee. And we know the Dolphins situation was unfortunate. And, yes, Rick, I'm totally agreeing with you all the way. What happened in Arizona was a joke. All right, George, some thoughts on Josh Rosen?
Well, again, echoing Rick's sentiments, I mean, he's a stopgap quarterback, stopgap measure for the Browns. Again, we're waiting to see what the NFL punishment will be for Deshaun Watson. And we're, I'm not going to say anything good or bad about Rosen. I mean, obviously he has bounced around, but like so many backup quarterbacks have over the years in the NFL. The situation in Cleveland is not, as good as it could be for a quarterback right now. I mean, they had a lousy year last year, and obviously they're hoping for better days, but I'm not convinced that Cleveland's even going to be in that race. But as far as Josh goes, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, he was surrounded with great receivers and with some good running backs, and maybe he'll have some good stats. But again, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's mostly just a stopgap measure. They got to have themselves a quarterback to fill the gap there with the suspension looming. And, he has bounced around, but so many of those backup quarterbacks bounce around from team to team and year to year. And, I wait and see on that. But yeah, it's not going to get you probably as many wins as you'd hope for if you're a Cleveland Browns fan.
JB?
Somebody's got to be the third quarterback. Right now, obviously Watson's the starter. You have your backup, and you got, Josh Rosen. Is he good enough to be a backup in the league? Not really. Probably didn't cost much. It fits into the salary cap. So if he, gets to be on the team for a while, put him on the bench, don't have him dress when Deshaun's there. And, he he can play if in an emergency. So not a horrible move. You gotta find ways in the NFL with the salary cap now to make things work. You got to find guys that can go out there and play when it's necessary. And, they obviously saw something in him with all the guys they could have went out there inside. So I don't think it's a bad move. And I don't think he's talented enough to ever be a starter in the NFL again. But in an emergency situation, at least he has experience. He can go out there and do what needs to be done. And, he's maybe just as good as about half the backups in the league anyway.
Well, I'll add one thing to what Rick mentioned. Okay, I'll piggyback off you a little bit. Okay, Rick. Number one, what he does have going for him that most quarterbacks don't have is USFL made it through year one, and the XFL starts up, I believe, in February. So he'll be able to get more reps in the spring if he's not able to get many here during the regular season. And I can't when they talk about a secondary league, the Canadian Football League has brought in a lot of quarterbacks. One that stands out to me has always been Warren Moon. So, if you can land somewhere and put enough film up there, anybody's going to find you. And I still don't think the NFL has the top 32 quarterbacks. So the longer Josh Rosen sticks around, then I'm for the underdog because of what you said, Rick. But yeah, you got the XFL, USFL, Canada. I don't think he's going there anyways. I'm rooting for Josh Rosen. That's all I'll say about that. So we'll see. Having those spring leagues, I want those spring leagues to succeed. I've seen some USFL players actually picked up by NFL teams, and we've even begun to see the tip of the iceberg yet as training camp starts to wind down a little bit. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's go to the Baseball Hall of Fame. David Big Papi Ortiz is now in it. And now that opens up a lot of interesting questions. We addressed those a little bit on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk last night with myself and Rick Curdy and Lou Landers. We'll talk about Big Papi. We're going to focus on him a little bit, and then we're going to go on to some of the other ones. David Ortiz, obviously, we know that he failed that anonymous drug test. He got in, but then if you're going to talk about him, you got Mike Piazza and Ivan Rodriguez were suspected of doing it. But I think one of the reasons that Ortiz really gets in is he was a likable individual. He helped Boston with that long, big drought to win a World Series. And when you're likable and you get along with the media, my goodness, they're going to reward you. They really are. And and the Hall of Fame didn't have anybody going, I don't think, last year. So I think they had a pretty interesting class with Tony Oliva there, Jim Cott, and David Ortiz. But all right, Rick, let's piggyback off of last night a little bit. What are your thoughts about Big Papi going in the Hall of Fame? And I don't want you mentioning the other guys. The focus right now, Rick, is strictly on Ortiz, all right?
Okay. Well, I'm not very happy. I've been very consistent with not having PED users in the Hall of Fame. And, they allowed one. People can say what they want about Bagwell or Piazza or whatever. They think they did it. This guy actually did it. He was on the same list as Alex Rodriguez. And we know what happened to Alex Rodriguez when this avalanche of storm came out, that he was a PED user and all that stuff. David Ortiz was on that list, and it got the media didn't even pick up on it. And he claims, I don't know what happened, whatever, but he should not have been in. I'm not happy with it. It just shows the hypocrisy of sports. If you're, like you said, Scott, if you're a likable guy, they'll reward you. And if you're not very likable, like a Bonds or a Clemens, they're not going to put you in. So as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to see PD users, but you're going to put Big Papi in, allow everyone else in. Why not? Because you're just not showing the consistency that you should be doing by not allowing them. So I think eventually Bonds and Clemens and Sosa and McGuire will probably get in now that Big Papi's in, but will remain to be seen. But to me, this is a black guy. I'm not happy with it. And to me, David Ortiz should not have been in the Hall of Fame at all, period.
And we're going to get to those other guys in a moment, but I'm glad that you maintained your focus on David Ortiz. Yeah, he is likable. He put up some pretty good numbers. He's the first designated hitter, I think, to get in. That can open up more doors for future DHs as well. But yeah, if you're likable and you're a hero in Boston and you have a media that's going to put you in a major market and you won a World Series for a team that hadn't won it for a lot of years, you have a lot of things going for you as well. But that said, George Eichhorn, David Ortiz, you like it or you don't?
I like it because I'm a firm believer that a guy does deserve a second chance. He does fall under that category of a media darling, let's be honest.
Right.
But you got to remember, it's not the electronic media that's voting for him. These are the baseball writers. So, you got to be careful when you say the media, because it's the writers that are determining these guys' fate. at least in this round of balloting. And as you guys alluded to, probably we'll talk about this later, but that group of guys that Rick referred to, I'm guessing will have a better chance under the other committees, those super committees that have been established. But if you're going to put Bud Selig in, and Bud Selig, of course, was the commissioner for a long time, and this is my point of contention on when all this stuff happened, you put him in, and I don't care if it was a separate category, contributor, and all that. I know he didn't play the game. But my justification is there that everybody should be considered. My only exception, of course, is somebody like Pete Rose, and that's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. But I'm a fan of Big Papi. I'm glad he's in. I'm glad a designated hitter is in. And I think it shows that there's a lot of interest in the guys that even if they had a little bit of black mark on them, that they're still not going to be shut out. And he was overwhelmingly selected by the writers.
Well, I got in with 77% of the vote, at least.
Well, that's still to me overwhelming. But
well, I mean, yeah, baseball when you get in at 75%, not 74.8, you mean you're in the Hall of Fame, and I'll see the plaque next week.
Yeah,
but I'm with you all the way there, George.
I'm just saying that I think that he deserves it. I'm still a baseball purist, but I'm not going to be slamming the door on all these guys.
All right, JB, you're next.
So here's my thought on the whole PED thing. Wasn't against the rules of baseball at the time. Different than other people that, aren't in for other reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, there was nothing stopping for other people from doing it. I've known people that played professional baseball during the time that said they chose to use PEDs because it gave them a chance to make the majors. And it's a tough choice. If you're put in that situation, would you do it? I wouldn't because, I don't like the idea of it. But maybe if I was in that situation and the opportunity to make more money and to whatever, maybe I would have chosen to do that. But when it comes down to it, it's the media that votes on it. Ortiz was a likable guy. You put him with, I'm going to go back to who I wanted to meet, Bonds, just to compare who had a better career. Anybody that says it was Ortiz, I want them drug tested tomorrow because it's not true. So, it is what it is. Likability is the issue when you have, the media, which is us, vote on, the Hall of Fame. But there's no better way of doing it at this point. No matter how you do it, there's going to be flaws. I have no issue with him being in there.
Yeah, he's a folk hero in Boston, media likability. I have mixed emotions on him getting in there, but it was inevitable somebody was going to go ahead and get in from that particular group of PEDs. So I guess if you're going to do it, Ortiz, I have mixed emotions on it. I still think that every steroid user should not be in there. I believe you all the way, Rick. I do. And now that we've kind of danced around it, now we're going to get into some of the other names I'm going to bring up. So again, I preface my flow saying, I have mixed emotions. If you're a media darling, you got a much better chance when you don't bite the hand that feeds you. In this particular case, don't bite the hand that feeds you. I understand he was nearly killed out in what were his country, and he ended up getting went back to Boston to get medical care. So that just shows you how well liked he is over there. So all right, since we've danced around these names, now we're going to get to them, so I can let you guys loose on them a little bit. And JB, we're going to let you start it off this time. We're going to talk about Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa get in, and Alex Rodriguez still can be voted in, and the other ones are off the ballot. Okay, JB, now I'm going to let you loose with the other four.
So Bonds should get in, and eventually I'm sure he will. Clemens, I don't know, he threw the bat at Piazza. To this day, and I'm a Yankee fan, he should have been banned from baseball immediately after that. Like, I'd have been happy if the commissioner walked out of the field with police and arrested him. I don't like Roger Clemens. I don't like him before that, but, how the Mets did not start a fight and, whatever. I'll let that go. Sammy Sosa, I don't know. You go to the cork bat thing. To me, that was definitely against the rules. PEDs, again, was not against the rules of baseball at the time. I can live with that. The cork bat, how many home runs came with the cork bat? I don't know. So I'm going to say no to Sammy Sosa because of that one. And who was the other one?
I got Mark McGwire.
McGwire, I think because of the reinvigoration of baseball that he was involved in, and because he didn't have the cork bat that Sosa did, he should get in, and Sosa unfortunately is out.
And you got Alex Rodriguez.
I don't like that guy. Next.
Okay, fair enough. Well, at least I know how you really feel about Alex Rodriguez. Not very good. Okay, George, go ahead.
And sorry to interrupt. The funny thing is they both play for my team, and I wouldn't give you $1 for either one of them.
Well, I'll tell you, I like your opinions. You're sharp tonight, JB. Good stuff, man.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Scott, you forgot one. Kurt Schilling.
Yeah, well, now, but he didn't get in there because of PEDs. He just broke a big cardinal rule: thou shalt keep thy foot on the ground, not thy mouth. Okay, and that's a commandment that I probably invented that nobody in their right mind would go ahead and bring up. So, then performance-enhancing drugs. That's called Big Mouth 101. Okay, but that's
you know a guy from Detroit whose kid is trying to make the Detroit Tigers roster. I'm going to vote for Clemens.
Right, yeah, I know.
Yeah, as his kid Cody tries to play third base here. Not very successful.
Yeah, and he's a pitcher for games that are way out of control.
He's got a 6.0 ERA. Yeah,
well, it's probably a good 3-digit number for the Michigan State Lottery, though. So, all right. With that said, George, comment on the 4 people I'm talking about.
I'm for Clements. I'm for Bonds. I'm for Alex Rodriguez. I'm not for Sosa. I agree wholeheartedly with you, JB. The cork bat thing is really bad. And who's the other one? Canseco?
Well, I got it. Well, he ain't getting in, but at least
he McGuire.
Alex Rodriguez, McGuire, and then Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah. Mark McGuire. Again, this thing with the Peds, and if it wasn't illegal at the time, and holding this against them all this time, and now what they get into, most of them their last year are into about 60. Did they get to 60 percentile? A couple of them did, I think, the last year voting.
Up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of what's happening now is you're seeing there's more younger baseball writers. So a lot of them are a little bit more lax, liberal, whatever you want to say. And they're giving these guys a second shout. Well, the ones that were still on the ballot. And I think that's what you're seeing, that a lot of the old curmudgeons, the Jerry Greens, the Joe Falls of the world, those guys are retired. They're not baseball writers anymore. They can't vote anymore. So the younger writers, I think, are giving the guys with these question marks a better chance.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, I don't want to see any of them. I hate them all. I hate all PED users. It does affect your numbers. Look what happened to Bonds. I mean, he's hitting like 70 home runs at the age of 39 and his head grew. Come on. So PEDs has an effect on it. Sammy Sosa was a little twig playing for the White Sox, and he grew up to be Lou Ferrigno, was hitting 60-some home runs. Without PEDs, Bonds would not be the home run king. Sosa would not have those numbers. Mark McGuire had a 201 batting average. Bad back in Oakland, was a shell of himself. Goes to the Cardinals, and voila, 70 home runs. So PEDs has an effect on it, and they cheated. They might not have been illegal, but they cheated. They should not be in, and unfortunately, they probably will get in, because now if you put David Ortiz in, you have to allow the Alex Rodriguez in, the Bonds, the Clemens, the McGuires, the Sosas. I think the one that's going to be left out, and his numbers are phenomenal, but he was, caught with PEDs, was Rafael Palmeiro. Look at his numbers. They're fantastic, but he ain't going to get in. Unfortunately, I think he'll be left out in the cold. So, but all the other guys, they'll get in, because you allowed one cheater to get in, you got to allow all the cheaters to get in.
Yeah, I'll take a quote from Chris Mad Dog Russo, and I watch a lot of the shows that when I have a chance. His quote is, "Ruin the record books. You're not going in." That's his opinion, and you know what? He's a credible source to me. I like Mad Dog, I really do. And again, the key words: ruin the record books. Now, as to the players here, okay, and yes, JB, I know it was legal then. Okay,
no, I have a question though. But look at Bonds, right? Out of all the guys, he really, if you want to break it down, had 2 different careers. He had the career as I don't know if you want to say skinny, not bulked up guy.
Yeah, he had a lot of stolen bases early.
Yeah.
He hit 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases almost every year. He was a power hitter still. I mean, so, he was still the best in the game back then. There was no question. You can't go back then and say he wasn't, one of the top 2 or 3 players then. Did he have enough years before the transformation as being the best player that you would say?
Right.
If his
Yeah.
career ended at that point, would you say he would have been a Hall of Famer?
I probably might. And I'll tell you why, because he played comparable like his dad, Bobby Bonds, did, who was able to hit for power and had a lot of speed. I would say that, but that's a real great hypothetical question. But I'll give you my thoughts on the four, but I'm going to think about what you said, JB, in a moment, and then I'll elaborate. First of all, Roger Clemens, if you're going to put Ortiz in, you got to put him in. Barry Bonds, I still think that Hank Aaron's the all-time home run king, and I'll never back off that comment. But, if you're going to talk about Ortiz, Bonds has to go in. I'm just glad he never got a job with anybody else after his contract was up. Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, you know what? I'm still going to have that soft spot that they saved the game of baseball after that devastating strike, and they brought the game back. And again, maybe I'm a little partial towards Sammy. I worked with him in 1987 with the Gastonia Rangers. So if anybody knows how skinny he was, I do, because I'm the one who had to pick him up at the airport in Charlotte, okay? Or I had to drive him around whenever I needed to, and we hung out a lot, and he was a good friend. Alex Rodriguez, to me, I have no interest in him. Rafael Palmeiro just needs to learn how to act in front of Congress. Couldn't do it. Wasn't the name mentioned, but you know what, Rick? Since you brought it up, I didn't do steroids, but put that wiggle that finger up there, and all of a sudden you look like, you know what, after you went ahead and lied to everybody on the planet. So getting back to what Russo said, ruin the record books, I wouldn't vote you in. Now, back to you, JB, for a moment, okay? And that's this. You talk about two separate careers. I like what Bonds did out in Pittsburgh. I really do. He was a good all-around player. But when you have that Balco thing going on in San Francisco, you have access to that stuff. And whether he's going to admit it or not, it doesn't matter anyways. But again, it's none of our, we're not going to have any. And it goes back to what George said. He may get in because of these subcommittees anyway, so it's going to matter what we have to say. It's just comparing and contrasting Ortiz to these guys who gets in next. And I know it's good that in this particular segment, though, that we all have mixed opinions on it. Rick and I are probably more consistent that they don't belong, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when because of circumstances. A-Rod won't be decided for a while because he just got on the ballot, and I think we have another 7-8 years. The other ones may get in sooner than we think. So, you know what, though? I love having segments like this where we can go out there and have a lot of different opinions, and this was definitely one of those that tests a lot of people. For a lot of you folks out there that are watching us for the first time, my name is Scott Morganroth. Please be joined by Rick Curdy, JB Ellis, and George Eichorn. This is a Sports Exchange, a show that talks about a lot of different topics here as well. And, these guys are a great group of guys to work with. George and Eichorn and I have been doing the Sports Exchange for ages. We began it in Metro Detroit, and now we're carrying it here. So let me just put some information out there before we go on to the next topic. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So, folks, whether you're listening to us, wherever you're at, or you're watching us, again, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. There's other places you can, wherever you get your podcast, and then you can listen to us, see us, or whatever. And we also encourage you to send us your comments at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If your comment goes ahead and gets sent to us, we'll definitely bring it up on the next broadcast as well. All right, well, I enjoyed that segment. We covered a lot of ground. Now we're going to talk about a guy that we kind of briefly mentioned a little bit, Kyla Murray, who has a new contract for the Arizona Cardinals, $46.1 million per year. The Oakland A's payroll for 2022 is $48.5 million. And I know the Cardinals just inserted a clause in there that he had to have 4 hours of study time in order to collect that. Now, if that isn't the most interesting clause, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But think about it. Did Kyler Murray make the right career choice, knowing he's getting $46.1 million per year, and the Oakland A's payroll for 2022 is $48.5 million? I'm not a math expert, and if I need my father-in-law, Fred Ebling, I'm sure he'd give me a pretty good idea that I'm not too far with these numbers, that there's only a couple $1 million to separate one from the other. All right, Rick Curdy, go ahead. If you like to pick on the A's, I'll let you get an opportunity to pick on the A's and then Murray.
Well, he obviously made the right choice because if he was with the A's, he wouldn't be getting all that money, and he'd probably be like a utility player, or he'd probably be like like a pinch hitter. I don't think he would make like this big impact in MLB than he did in the NFL, where he's the number one pick. He's a starting quarterback. He's with the Cardinals. Now he's got all this boatload of money now. And congrats to him. He made the right decision. The NFL. Their contracts are not guaranteed like Major League Baseball, but it depends on the signing bonus. It depends how much guaranteed money you get and all that. So, did he make the right decision? Well, obviously, because he's almost making more money than the entire baseball team in Oakland. So he made the right decision, and kudos to his agent.
George?
How many Super Bowls has he won? None. That's not going to matter, though. Kyla Murray is a future face, current and future face of football. They threw a lot of money to Matthew Stafford in Detroit. He never won anything. This happens all the time when you've got a good quarterback with good statistics and most of the time a good level head. I am curious, Scott, about what you said, and that's the study time that they put into the contract. That seems awful strange to me. That you would do that to your number one guy, that you'd have to do that. In other words, what are you insinuating there? That he doesn't understand the playbook, that he needs more in-depth knowledge of the playbook and of the plays? I don't know. It's out there. But, yeah, of course he's going to get a lot of money. His stats are right up there. Arizona has been good, very good, playoff team the last several years. And, like Rick said, you're never going to compare it to a baseball team in a market like Oakland. Obviously, that's a good stat that you brought forward, Scott. But football is just so far ahead. Their television contracts and the money that they dish out to these players is ridiculously high. But again, a guy with that much potential, that much talent, and that much visibility is going to get that kind of money. He's a good quarterback, but let's see. I'll be watching to see. Oh, and then another thing I was going to mention is, don't forget you got guys like Brady and Rodgers, and of course Drew Brees, already retired. When they're that changing face of the NFL,
Right.
obviously is going to be the younger quarterbacks. Stafford's got a lot of years on him already, as we know. So they want to secure him. Obviously, the Cardinals wanted to secure him. And I'm not surprised they threw that much money at him. Is it too much? Of course.
I think the going rate nowadays for quarterbacks, believe it or not, is $40 million a year. Who'd have thunk that? I remember, George, many years ago when you and I were looking at Matthew Stafford getting a $40 million signing bonus. Now that's what they're getting per year. And
Yeah.
who would have thought William Clay Ford was going to spend that kind of money until he had to realize, no, Russ Thomas isn't walking through that door. Okay, making sure you wouldn't get 40 cents, let alone 40 million, until William Clay Ford went ahead and exited him out the door. You're 65, you're retiring. That's how we do things at Ford Motor Company. So the going rate's 40 million, and we haven't even seen the Lamar Jackson situation. But I have a few other thoughts about it, but I want to defer to JB first. Okay, Kyla Murray, what's your take on this?
So Kyla Murray's got to study the playbook, but is Cliff Kingsbury going to have to learn how to coach the second half of the year? I mean, he is garbage in the second half of the year. Let's renegotiate his contract and, tell everyone how he can't coach in the second half of the year. Why would they ever release that, the guy has to study 4 hours a week? First of all, he's the quarterback. He should be studying the playbook daily, even if he knows it, because every week there's changes to the playbook. Because you're playing a different team, you put new plays in, you take plays out. So you're always studying the playbook. What kind of stupid clause is that? Is Arizona like, in the XFL, or are they in the NFL? What kind of stupidity is that? Meanwhile, I got a coach that can't win a game in the second half. So I don't know. The minor league organization, totally surprised by the way they handle that.
So JB, let me ask you a question real quick, okay? You ever heard of the Arizona Wranglers?
No.
They used to be a USFL team back in the 80s, by the way. And you know who used to coach that team, by the way? George Allen, formerly the Redskins. I'll be darned. And I saw them actually play in the USFL championship game in Tampa a while back. So, all right, I'm going to give you my take. That's an interesting point, though. So, you want to bring up a USFL connection? I was going to do that back in the 80s, probably when you weren't really quite around, anyways. That's where we have this little generation gap or decade gap or whatever you want to call it.
I
I don't know.
actually had a Herschel Walker Generals cap that was signed. I went to a game. My best friend's father used to drive the bus for the Generals. So
Yeah.
we actually went to the Meadowlands, went to a game. He got us the Herschel Walker signed caps. It was a great day.
Yeah, I was actually hoping that LA would actually make it to Tampa because I had a good friend, a broadcaster, one of my mentors, Andy Loscano, would have made the trip to Tampa. Instead, I got Arizona and the Wranglers, and that didn't quite work out so good. I'll give you my take on this thing, okay? I think the clause that they inserted there about him studying 4 hours is pretty stupid. I think that's a God-given that you should be doing it anyways. It's part of your JOB, but they did it anyways. Here's my biggest concern about Murray, okay, as well as a lot of these mobile quarterbacks. And I preface mobile quarterbacks. If you're a running quarterback, you're a moving target, okay? I don't have to tell you what happened to RG3. I have to tell you what happened to Randall Cunningham and what I'm worried about with Lamar Jackson. Will this guy see the end of that contract? I think he's getting $160 million guaranteed, or Deshaun Watson's getting everything guaranteed at $230. So my question to anybody else out there when you're talking about Kyla Murray, let's just hope and pray that he doesn't end up getting seriously injured by the end of that contract, knowing that he's a multiple dual threat. Nowadays, quarterbacks are dual threats. That's what you're starting to bring in. You look at Trey Lance, who they're starting to bring in with the 49ers. It's a foregone conclusion that that's what they saw in him. So, are these guys going to break down? Are they going to see the end? I'm waiting to see what Lamar Jackson earns. So, do I think Kyler Murray deserves a good contract? Sure. He's certainly going to be the face of the Arizona Cardinals. But inserting a clause like that, to me, weird. But, nowadays, though, when we talk about the NBA and you talk about playing issues about how many games you're going to play before they take off, now, I don't know if any clause is really outrageous anymore, considering the modern times that we're dealing with millennials and the different generation of athlete that we have. What would be a God-given situation many years ago that you would take for granted. Do we really have to go to that level to insert clauses in it just to make sure they do what they're supposed to do? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to figure that out tonight or any other night. So let's not concentrate on that. But again, my concern with Kyler Murray is his durability. And if he gets one big hit, the Cardinals are going to pay the piper for it. He isn't studying anywhere. If he has a concussion, he's delusional for a while. And I'm not wishing the worst on Kyler Murray. And yeah, Cliff Kingsbury hasn't shown me a lot as a coach. I think the biggest thing we have to wonder is how efficient the Cardinals receivers are going to be. I know the one that comes to mind is DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm sure they have a lot of other guys. I'm not going to get into their thing because I want to make sure the focus is on Kyler Murray. Okay, so will he see the end of that 5-year contract and be worth every dime? And, of course, you had that clause. I don't know, TBD, but I don't like the history of some of these mobile quarterbacks that are getting beaten up and are really getting hammered in their second or third year. To me, I'll take a page out of what Rick Curdy once said on a few baseball shows, okay? We know the Miguel Cabrera and the Albert Pujols contracts, when you go into 10 years, the back end isn't very good. I think I can utilize a comparable comparison here, knowing that what happens with some of these quarterbacks' contracts later on. And again, you're tying up a lot of money for this guy, and what do you have around you? You're getting talent with pennies on the dollar to make sure you have a halfway decent supporting cast. So my biggest thing with Murray, we'll just see how well, if he makes it to the end of that contract in one piece, because I don't like the history there at all. All right, our final topic of the night is going to go to the giving a lot of people a lot to think about. That's what we really to do. Every segment is designed to make sure that everybody's wheels are turning. George and I can know about wheels are turning because we're from the Motor City anyways, right? And for a lot of people that realize my indigent sleep habits, my wheels are always turning, and it drives my wife absolutely nuts. Okay. But for all you people out there, it'll be a Trazodone and Tizanidine night, so if I'm lucky, I might get 8 hours of sleep tonight instead of 8 minutes. Okay, with that said, we'll transition over to Soldier Field. I know, JB Ellis, you travel to Chicago quite a bit, and I know that that's one of your favorite areas, and I happen to love Chicago too. I've covered a lot of games at Soldier Field, but the mayor of Chicago is talking about a roof at Soldier Field. Let's break over the particulars, okay? Chicago, he's proposing this thing that Soldier Field has a capacity of 61,500, and this new proposal would increase to 70,000. It is the smallest stadium in the NFL. But meanwhile, the Bears bought property in Arlington Heights, which is 30 minutes on the north side of Chicago. And you're talking about 326-acre property for $197.2 million. It's not a matter of if, guys. It's a matter of when they're going to Soldier Field. But I'm going to lead off this one, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, and I understand 61,500. I was at Soldier Field. I used to make Chicago towards my regular trip. A 4-hour drive. I never flew there. I enjoyed taking the ride down I-94. I love Soldier Field, but let's face it, we all like Yankee Stadium. They leveled that. We all like Tiger Stadium. They leveled that. I don't think they'll level Soldier Field. I'm sure they'll find something to do with it because it's a historical place. But I think it might be inevitable for the Bears to go out there and move to the suburbs, especially knowing that they're going to go ahead and build on that site. So what I want to do here first, though, is I want to go to JB Ellis. I want you to give me a little bit more information on the Arlington site, what you think the plans are, and all of us will go ahead and chime in after that. Go ahead, JB.
So, I mean, basically the Bears want to do what in baseball, what the Cardinals and the Braves have done, build little, entertainment districts where you can have restaurants, where you can tailgate, enjoy the game, go get a nice dinner, spend a lot of money, and be comfortable and enjoy the game. I mean, Soldier Field's a great place to go. You can compare it to other stadiums. I got to go see the Giants practice there January 2nd. Wasn't much of a game. The Bears were up 14 points in the first minute, so I won't call it a game. But it's a beautiful stadium. I like the idea of an open air stadium when you play in Chicago and Green Bay. I think it's a home field advantage for you. Why you want to put a dome if you play in the north and take away your natural ally, the cold, the snow, the wind? Doesn't make much sense to me, especially in the NFL where every little edge is so huge. When you have a team from Tampa or, Dallas that may have to go there and they're not used to the cold and it's a December game, maybe even a playoff game, you want to put them in a dome where now you have your best ally, the weather, and you've just taken it and thrown it away? And to me, that doesn't make sense. I'm sure there's a way to always expand seating and everything. I think the Arlington thing is definitely going to be done within maybe 10 years or so.
Right.
I know the mayor did speak about trying to get another team in Chicago if the Bears do decide to leave. I don't know how the mayor all of a sudden could just bring a team in. Maybe she should talk to Rick about how that happens with baseball, because I know Rick's been trying to get teams to Charlotte for a while. But Mayor Lightfoot thinks she has all the power to bring NFL teams to Chicago. So there's just a lot going on with the situation. I think it's just a matter of when. It's about making money. The Bears want to have more luxury boxes. A dome makes it usable year-round. You can have more events in the place so you can make money. It all makes sense financially, but, sometimes you got to go a little bit beyond that. Like you said, they tore down Yankee Stadium. I hate the new Yankee Stadium. I've been to Wrigley Field this year more than I've been to Yankee Stadium since it opened, the new one. So, I don't like it.
Well, you know what, Rick, go ahead. JB set you up very nicely.
Yeah, appreciate it. This is the mayor who said this. She's never played football. I don't even know if she's a sports fan. She's, had so much controversy with all the crime going on in Chicago. And so, yeah, having a nice new stadium, retractable roof and all that, and have all the shiny new things. Yeah, it sounds exciting. But, like JB says, where's the advantage, And then I just hate seeing historical places getting rid of. What's next? You can get rid of Wrigley. You're going to get rid of Fenway. I mean, can you imagine them getting rid of Lambeau Field and building a retractable dome stadium in Green Bay, which probably eventually will happen? I mean, I hate when these things happen, especially people who are not in sports, like the mayor, and who knows nothing about this. She's just saying this just to because it's a new thing. It's a nice, shiny thing. We're going to have the best stadium in the world. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic, blah, blah, blah. And it's eventually going to happen. But, it's so sad to see these historical places like Soldier Field go away. And I agree, the advantage of playing in the cold, just like going to Green Bay, where it's like -2 degrees and you have a team from like the Rams, or you have a team like Tampa or some other team from a very sunny place go there and they just look like they're just totally thrown off. So I like seeing snow games and all that stuff. It's fun, but I'm not a fan of this, but this is just the mayor saying something that she knows absolutely nothing about, and she needs to just worry about fixing the crime in Chicago instead of trying to be a commissioner or trying to bring a new stadium to Chicago.
All right, George.
Well, I think you got to give her a little bit more credit than that, Rick. Come on. These were actual drawings and renditions of what the Dome Stadium would look like. Okay, you act like she did this in a vacuum. No, they had architects and they went to work. I give her and the city higher ups in Chicago credit for trying to stop this a railroad of the city and moving that team out north. Hey, listen, I've lived through this and I hated it. Pontiac Silverdome, so many miles away from Detroit. And you talk about the advantage. Come on, guys. The Packers won one Super Bowl with Favre and one with Rodgers. Okay. The Bears got what? One? Or do they win two? You talk about an advantage. Okay, so yeah, maybe in the conference play and maybe in some of the home games. And Detroit and Minnesota, they sacrificed that advantage. It's gotten them nowhere. So maybe you are onto something about that cold weather. I'm trying to play devil's advocate, of course, but the NFC North, of course, had four open air stadiums at one time, and now we're down to just two. Of course, you want to have a dome, and you want to attract the NCAA Final Four. You want to get the Super Bowl. You want to get soccer, professional or World Cup soccer, and maybe someday the Olympics. Who knows? But I know why they're doing it. They want to raise more revenue, like you said, JB. And also creating that little city atmosphere. That's been done, obviously, by a lot of cities already. We're struggling with that here in Detroit. We have some restaurants, but nothing near what was promised with putting these three stadiums near each other in Detroit. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I give the mayor credit, at least for coming up and her people with the engineers that she hired to come up with the drawings and look kind of exciting. And I have been to Soldier Field one time. The Detroit Lions played there when Monty Clark was the coach, as you remember, way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And they lost to the Bears by a field goal. And that was the same weekend the Pistons played the Bulls and the Red Wings played the Blackhawks. And I helped organize a road trip to see all three of our teams play there. All three of them within 48 hours played in Chicago. We lost every game by 3 points or 3 goals, and it was still a lot of fun. And I agree with you, Scott. Soldier Field is very special stadium.
Oh, I used to like.
But again, reality is, if they bought that land already, it's going to be hard to prevent the railroad from taking full force and them going out there. But I
made that my annual trip. I'll tell you, I can remember many times standing on the field, Lake Michigan, wearing my hiking boots with 4 pairs of socks. But I can also remember that the Bears PR people used to go out there, and that press box used to give us box lunches. Those were great. And the only way that you stop Barry Sanders is that wind kicking in from Lake Michigan. If the Bears' vaunted defense didn't do it, the wind did. So, it's a great place. I'm all for definitely outdoor stadiums. I don't think you can take away the elements out. But let's face the reality, dome stadiums are going to bring in more attractions like Final Four, things like that. You certainly have to think about it. And while you didn't like the Silver Dome, George, I did like it. The Silver Dome for me was my home away from home. I used to go there every week. Mike Murray, Bill Keenis, James Petralka, the list goes on and on. They made sure I was taken care of. When we only had one credential, you had to get the second one. They weren't giving up mine. And I was on the road with them a lot. But, yeah, I remember watching games at Tiger Stadium. And I remember watching games outdoors. The only one outdoor venue I never saw was in Minnesota at the old Metropolitan Stadium, but who cares anyways? And I saw it over the Metrodome. So, yeah, I definitely like the elements, knowing that the intangibles, as they would say in the betting industry, would be out there to say, how many times is a game decided because of wind or whatever the case may be, that could be decided. Heck, we're losing game because of bad calls. You can't sit there and fault Mother Nature for going out there and howling and making things a little bit there as well. So we take away the human element, but the reality of the situation is, it's going to happen. And here's the thing, there won't be 2 teams in Chicago. There is no way at all. I can understand maybe 2 in baseball. There is only 1 in hockey, right? There's only 1 in the NBA. This is not LA where you're going to get 2 of everything. This is New York where you get 2 of everything. Chicago is only have 2 teams in one sport, and that's baseball, and I can completely understand that. Nothing else. So, yeah, JB, it comes down to one thing, okay? It's 8 to 10 years down the road. I may not be alive to know that stadium's even alive. Anyways, all I can do is just visualize it, okay, and see what I think it could look like. And yes, I'm always encouraging development around an area, because what you guys don't understand, and I live it firsthand, and this is no disrespect to the Miami Marlins, okay? When you go to Miami to see a game, there's no entertainment in Little Havana, folks, okay? You're going to the game, and then you're going back on the freeway, and that's it. I don't think I've ever remembered a time I've walked into one of those restaurants in Little Havana, and I can bet you very much right now, Carl Lewis isn't walking through that door, running out of there real quick, or Ben Johnson, cheaters and all, getting the heck out of Little Havana. So you need development around an area. Tiger Stadium had a lot of great restaurants around it. And, I'm sure a lot of major places are doing it. And I think the Brewers are trying to do that as well. So no 2 teams in Chicago. I think you told me earlier, JB, that they're going to do away with the racetrack over at Arlington Heights. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, they ran a couple of days this year, but they didn't apply for the license for next year. There are people fighting to keep it open, but it's not much. It's pretty much done. The Bears own the land now. I don't foresee it, happening anymore.
Yeah, well, 8 to 10 years for all you Chicago fans. Enjoy Soldier Field while you have it, because you're going to have it for another 8 or 10 years. I know that they're making plans and they got the land. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Great show tonight, guys. I know we covered a lot of major topics tonight, and I'm really glad that we were able to address a lot of the major ones. So we have about a minute left to go in the show here. Rick, any quick closing thoughts? About 20 seconds. What do you like about what we did tonight?
Oh, I think I went really good. I love the different opinions. I love how we can agree to disagree. You have me going off on the mayor, and you have George reeling it back, and I'm talking about the old stadiums, and we have to get with it. So I like the whole diversity of conversations we have and different opinions.
George Eichhorn, quick.
I was there also at Tiger Stadium in the freezing cold, and you'd snuggle up with a little bit of liquor there. You'd sneak it into the stadium. And yeah, there's nothing like the old days. I agree with that. Great show. Yeah. Great show.
Unfortunately, you and I had to experience a Chuck Hughes passing away against the Chicago Bears when he passed away. I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but we were both there. So since there's a Chicago connection between there and there, and you have Lake Michigan, you have the Second City, Michigan Avenue, there you have a little connections. All right, JB, real quick.
Listen, it's hard to see when you have these great venues close. It's part of sports. It's like when you lose your great players, it happens. It's a business.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, I can tell you right now, enjoy the business of working with Rick Curdy, George Eichhorn, JB Ellis. So we've done all the introductions earlier. So we're going to tell you, folks, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Rick Curdy, Mr. Opinion, George Eichhorn, JB Ellis. I do want to mention one last thing before you wrap her up. Please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel so you can see everything. Follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. And go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, and email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. So on behalf of Rick Curdy, George Eichhorn, and JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will catch you on the next edition of the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody, and have yourself a wonderful, safe weekend. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.